All right, in the last video we talked about special effects that go on top of our black line art, and those are called color holds. And I did it for the frosting on the donut. These are rasterized so that you can edit them any way you want, with color, with erasing. But the whole point is to do something on top of the black line art that you think brings it out. If I want more black to show, I can even just erase. I was showing you dodge and burn before, but I can just erase at a low opacity with a large soft brush. That's pressure sensitive with my tablet, so I can control it. And I can just bring a little bit more of that black in like the whole of the donut, right? So much that we have control to do. And then the next type of color hold is something that goes over the top of the black line art and then above it as well. So a really strong example of this in my slides is not this really subtle example, but is this really, really intense example of a glare, right? And that glare is affecting not just the black line art, but also every color behind it. It's like a lens flare. And you can see just that in a really subtle way on the golden lasso here, how that's affecting even the skin tone and the blues behind it. So how can we play with that? Well, I just created a little star, and then I softened it with Gaussian blur. And now I can play with the opacity of it. I can also play with the blending mode. Like screen is often used to kind of lighten everything. Or you could even use dissolve if you want that kind of texture to it. One trick is when you like the texture that a blending mode is giving you, you can duplicate it, and then you can select the two layers and then merge them, which is Command E, merge layers. And then you'll get that effect, but you'll get it on a normal mode, which then allows you to do things like take that effect, but take its opacity down, and then paint in the middle of them. You know, make another little star. There's just all kinds of things you can do playing around with this stuff. What I often like to do is to make a little highlight that has a certain color like that, and then just duplicate it and move it around, in different places. So let me not auto-select the layer. So let's see, where else might this be helpful? I don't really like it on the lettering so much, but maybe that would be a little bit interesting at the edge of the cigarette, right? And it actually is affecting the lines, right? The black line art is changing because of this color hold that's on top of it. I can just make everything look a little dingier. A little grungier. We'll do one more. Maybe put it at the base of the donut, like right there. All right, so now all these color holds, they're all on top of the black line art. I'm going to put them all into a folder and just label that color holds. And you can decide whether you like the effects those give or not. But remember, it's about how versatile it is on different backgrounds. So that's what it looks like on black. I'll shrink my tools a little bit. This is how it looks on gray. This is how it looks on white. And you want your choices to work on all of them. Now notice on black, I lose so much of my line art. So one way you can use a color hold is a very simple way. You use that duplicate of your black line art, but instead of filling it with something really gaudy like this, let me go to the effects. I'm just going to choose like a brown, This is underneath the pink I already used. But I'm going to make it pretty dark, right? So a brown, kind of like that. Almost a leather color. And then, so you see it doesn't affect the pink on top. Then I'm going to take the blending mode, change it to dissolve, and then take the opacity down of that color hold. Just so there's a little bit of distinction between my black lines and a solid black background. You can see that. All right. There it is. Okay. And at any time, you can kind of turn off your different layers and see what they're doing. They take that down less. So I want it to be pretty subtle. Just get a little bit of distinction. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to keep working it on a gray background because that's what I like to kind of make my judgments based on. And the next step is to add what's called an offset. Now an offset, you know what, I'm going to add one other color hold I think I like. So for this, it's going to be really simple. For the wings of the flies, I'm just going to lasso them. Hold down Shift and lasso them. And because wings are translucent, they shouldn't be outlined with black in my mind. They should be like a lighter blue. So I'm just going to duplicate those and change the color overlay from brown to a light blue. Right? And then turn that dissolve a lot higher. I'm going to change the color to be a little less saturated. Like that. Well, the pink kind of works actually. Yeah, I'll do that. Ah, why does it keep moving? There we go. So you see those little fly wings now are lightened too. So those are all the color holds, all in that folder. Can be turned on and off. You decide if they're helpful or not for your. Okay, next, if we go to my handouts, right, we have what's called an offset. An offset is when we build a glow around the image borders itself so it works better on a dark shape. Like this, like you can't see the trails around the flies, you have a hard time seeing it. So this is how I do an offset. Turn off all your backgrounds, select all your visible layers, in this case including the color holds, hold down Option and then go to Layer, Merge Layers. It will make a clean combined layer on top. Double click on that to open Layer Styles, go to Color Overlay and choose White at 100%. Now this is what's called a base layer. And if you have anti-aliasing problems, you'll see that in the base layer, and you fix that by going to Effects and doing a stroke that you fill with the base color you want. In my case, white. But in your case, maybe it's a gray or a black or a blue or a brown. I'm doing it from the center, just 3 pixels, because that anti-alias is a really small effect. And so what that gives me is basically a white filled in cutout of my illustration, which then I can put behind everything. And I'm going to call this base color. So I move it down behind all my colors. Now let's turn on a black background, and now the other effect I add with my base color is an additional stroke. So what I can do is rasterize this layer style and then add a new stroke to it. And this time I want it to be on the outside, and I can make it as thick as I want. So one way we're thinking about spot illustrations is like sticker design, right? And stickers have a white border around them, like this. So you decide how thick. So that's one way to do an offset. That's what's called a hard-edged offset. And the benefit of it is it makes it look really clean no matter what the background is. But you might need to clean up some things. Like, so for my base color here, I'm going to go ahead and just delete these little marks so that they're not part of that offset. And then that's going to really bug me. So I go back to my vector line art, which is locked in here. And I'm going to select these two, duplicate it, and add my own stroke offset on them that I can control separately with a different width. Like that. And then I'll just fill this in on that layer with white. So sometimes you gotta, depending on the shapes that it makes, you have to customize your offset a little bit. Now what's great about having an offset built into your PNG design is now this design will work on any background and never lose all of its detail and definition. Right. Now you can also do a soft edged base color. I'll just do a duplicate of it to show you. And you change, instead of a stroke effect, you would use what's called outer glow. And that allows you to do the same thing, usually with white. Offsets are almost always white to keep the versatility on different backgrounds. But you can play with it being noisier and spread out. Come on. Like this. I'm just going to set it to normal mode. Now this is all just going behind your illustration, but on top of your backgrounds. Doesn't look solid white to me. It's because the opacity is only 75. There we go. So how is this different than a stroke? Well, I can soften the edge by making it spread very small, but its size large. That can give me the softest kind of glowing spectral offset. And then I like to add some noise. So like maybe that's the way you want it on a t-shirt, but the hard edge is what you would want on a sticker. I tend to like the hard edge. It's a classic. All right. So that is everything. Everything I've shown you here except for how to turn it into CMYK color separation, which I'm going to show you in the next video. So these are kind of optional special effects that go on top of the line art. To submit them, right, I'm going to save my work as a PSD, and then I'm going to turn off my backgrounds but leave my base colors on, my base coat on with the offset.